Today, Congress's new subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government held a blockbuster hearing on the politicization of the FBI and the Justice Department, as well as on toxic cancel culture and big tech's assault on free speech. Committee Chairman Jim Jordan issued a dire warning that many Americans have become targets for their beliefs.
Today it's worse. It's not just going after presidential candidates, presidential campaigns. Today it's the American people. If you're a parent attending a school board meeting, you're a pro-lifer praying at a clinic, or you're a Catholic simply going to mass, you are a target of the government, target of the FBI. And maybe even worse than all that, if you're one of the thousands of good employees, brave whistleblowers who's willing to come forward, if you're one of these folks willing to come forward and talk about what's going on out there, you get attacked. They will try to crush you.
Some FBI whistleblowers testified today about anti-conservative bias at the FBI when it came to investigating President Trump and also the January 6th protesters. So from the Republicans on the committee, their message was that the FBI has been weaponized and they're protected by the Biden administration. From the Democrats, they accused the whistleblowers of being disloyal, conspiratorial theorists, and even pushing the MAGA narrative. We'd like to get your seasoned view, because we know you've seen a lot of these, on how this went down today.
Well, it certainly provided probable cause for further investigation of the FBI, but it shouldn't be done by partisans of the Democrat or Republican side in Congress. They're just going to use these hearings to gain political advantage. What I think this tells us is that we have to have a commission like the 9/11 Commission. There's enough there to warrant that, based on distinguished people with law enforcement experience. Perhaps it could be chaired by Louis Freeh, the former head of the FBI, who loves the FBI, but also is very anti-corruption in many ways. But if you had a bipartisan commission like 9/11 Commission, people take the results of that very, very seriously. And nobody should be opposed to having guardians guard the guardians, as the Romans used to say, who will guard the guardians. And that's what we need oversight for. But we really can't trust hearings of this kind, which are political theater, to determine the outcome. There's enough here to tell us we need to inquire more, but the nature of the inquiry should be bipartisan, because every American has an interest in an FBI that isn't weaponized for partisan or political purposes.
It was said when the Durham report came out that Jim Jordan, Representative Jordan, said we need to bring Mr. Durham to Congress. Do you believe we're going to see some of the same political theater when he finally has a hearing and testifies?
We already have. We already have seen people like Adam Schiff and others on the Democrat side trying to discredit the report because Durham was appointed by a Republican administration. When he was initially appointed, people praised him. He has long experience. I read the report. I found it very credible, and I found it very disturbing, particularly the part of it that proved that a double standard was applied to not investigating Hillary Clinton based on better evidence than that which was used to justify investigating Donald Trump. Again, I'm a Hillary Clinton supporter. She's a friend of mine. I campaigned for her. I contributed to her campaign. I voted for her, voted for Joe Biden. But I want to see it done fairly. And so far, partisanship and weaponization has been the name of the game, and the American public loses when that happens.
Let's start where Alan Dershowitz left off. He believes there might have to be some sort of nonpartisan committee to sort of bring everything back to the middle again. Do you believe that?
I don't think so. I mean, with all due respect to Professor Dershowitz, I think that's kind of grasping at straws, because it's so obvious what the problem is right now. You have this huge partisan divide over it, but we got to recognize why there's a partisan divide. The partisan divide is because the left has captured the intelligence agencies and federal law enforcement. They're winning in this fight. They have won. The left's long march through the institutions wasn't just in the academies or the sciences or the schools. It's also been in law enforcement over the decades. And so they're not just going to relinquish that power voluntarily. And I think if you were to establish such a nonpartisan, bipartisan commission and let the left on, and frankly some of the apologists on the right, it would be akin to letting the terrorist on the 9/11 Commission. It just doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, the only solution in my mind is convincing the everyday American and enough people in this country, and I think we're well on our way there, that federal law enforcement has been weaponized, and it is not in the interest of this country. And unfortunately, the case is easier to make every single day when you look at what's happening with the retaliation against whistleblowers, the raiding of the chief political opponent's home in Donald Trump, the swinging of elections by the interference of the FBI. I think the reasonable Americans see this for what it is.
One of the whistleblowers this morning, Garrett O'Boyle, not only served 2 tours of duty, but highly educated in law enforcement, was selected to a new unit. And the first day he arrived to work from Kansas to Quantico, Virginia with his family, the first day the FBI suspended him. Now, he couldn't get his belongings or his clothes. He has 4 kids, including a 2-week-old baby at the time. Hearing that, Democratic Congressman Jerry Connolly called his testimony a sad tale and didn't live up to whistleblower status. So, Mike, hearing the opening statements this morning from these whistleblowers, do they have legitimate concerns about the FBI being politicized?
Oh, absolutely. And I think my friend Tristan Levitt, who testified on that panel from Empower Oversight, laid out how these whistleblowers fit the exact criteria that whistleblower protections were made for. And what they did to, them was absolutely tragic. And there are no coincidences. Obviously, what happened to, Mr. O'Doyle was timed to be its most painful point in his life to punish him. And I think that is clear for people to see. I mean, it is horrendous what he has been put through. And he's not the only one. And what I found most chilling was his advice when asked by Representative Armstrong, what would he tell someone else considering blowing the whistle? And he said, don't do it. It's not worth it. The FBI will crush you. That is a sad state of affairs in our country, that we can't even have systems to protect people to come forward. And the Democrats on that committee, who are supposedly liberals, who intellectually and ideologically should be the ones suspicious of big government, are trying to, sweep out the rug from the very people that are blowing the whistle on abuses of government. It's unfathomable we're at this place right now in 2023 in this country.